Hello, welcome to another edition of our live show, The Boob. Happy Tuesday, happy World Breastfeeding Week. I am so excited to be with you tonight. As you can see, I am flying solo tonight. Dominique is actually supporting a friend who is delivering a baby today. So we all know what that's like and how important it is to have good support during that time. So send all the good vibes that you can to her friend. She said she would try and be in the comments. So if she's able to, she will be answering questions. If not, then I will be answering questions that we don't get to in the show in the comments later. So yeah, that's what's going on. We are really excited to be here tonight with you to talk about breastfeeding and parenthood. And specifically, like I said before, it is World Breastfeeding Week. This week is set aside as a recognition and celebration of breastfeeding. The theme this year for World Breastfeeding Week is breastfeed for a healthier planet. So talking about some of the sustainability and societal health benefits, community health benefits, things like that this week. And then August is actually National Breastfeeding Month. So you will see the theme of really talking about heavily about breastfeeding and how it affects our families and our communities throughout the month. So that is really exciting. Keep your eye out for our content. Where we have a lot of fun stuff planned. So make sure that you're following our social media pages on both Instagram and Facebook. If you set to following, then you can actually get notifications of when our posts come up. So you don't have to wait for us to show up in your scroll or things like that. So be on the lookout. Look out for those things. We know so many of you guys are already supporting us on social media, and we really appreciate that support. Here at Kiinde, we are parents ourselves and lactation professionals, and we truly recognize the importance of community, and we know that without this community we couldn't do what we do, and everything that we do has you guys in mind. So thank you so much for your support. So I'm excited to chat with you about breastfeeding and parenting tonight. But before we get talking with our questions, let me just remind you about our free starter pack offer that is available to everyone that is watching tonight. You can just go to the link there and get your free breastfeeding starter pack. We just ask that you pay the shipping for that, and it will give you everything that you need to try the product. So inside of your starter pack, you're going to get your adapter, which hooks directly to your pump flange. We are compatible with most pumps on the market. This flange is from an Arto pump, but we're compatible with most on the market. If you have questions about what adapter you'd need, just let us know and we can help. And then your twist pouch is going to connect to your adapter on the other end. That allows you to directly pump into this pouch. As soon as you are done pumping, you take that flange off. You can cap it with the cap, which is so great for secure storage. You're not going to have any spilling, any loss of milk. When you can store it, so you can put it in the refrigerator, the freezer, however you want to store your milk. And then when you're ready to feed, you just take that cap off and you can pop it into our squeeze bottle, which allows you to feed with our Kiinde Active Latch nipple. This nipple helps to mimic the experience and the flow of breastfeeding if you choose to use that. If you have a specific preference, or your baby has a specific preference, you can feed with other nipples. Again, just using those same adapters that you would use with your pump, and you would just screw those right on, and you can feed your baby with the twist pouch. What does that mean? That means no transferring for you, which we know as a mom or a parent of a breastfeeding baby, losing precious drops of breast milk is never good. So that helps with that. If you are moving outside of the breast milk feeding, or you're moving into solid feeding, we also have solid feeding attachments. You can use these same twist pouches with purees or smoothies or whatever you want to put in. We do often get questions of what's the difference between the foodie pouch and the twist pouch. They are the same, just different branding. So you can use, if you have twist pouches that you're not using for breast milk anymore, or you just want to use the same, whatever, that's what that is. So this is our spoon. It's a nice soft silicone. We also have a snack spout and a sippy top. But inside of the starter pack, you will just be getting the adapters, your squeeze bottle and nipple, as well as the pouches. So if you haven't tried us yet and you want to, that's a great way to get started. The starter pack also makes a really great baby shower gift. It has some awesome coupons inside to try our other products. And if you have any questions about our Kiinde products at any time, you can always drop a question in the comments, send us an email to support@kiinde.com, and we will be able to help. So with that said, let's dive into our questions for the day. I know we got a lot of great questions on all of our social media posts over the last 24 hours. And so we're gonna jump into those, but if you have any questions during the live, pop them in the comments, and Emma, who's helping me out, she will pick a few for us to answer. And like I said, our team will be answering all of your questions throughout the rest of the evening. So this question says, why do some babies refuse to nurse? So this is kind of a loaded question. We don't always know why your baby may have difficulty nursing, but we can talk through some of the reasons that we do know. A lot of the reasons that nursing can get off to a kind of a rough start or be difficult can sometimes have to do with your birth experience. So of course, in a perfect world, we would have an intervention-free birth and we would have our babies and bring them right to our chest and they would be able to breastfeed and life would be great. But we know that life is not perfect and sometimes there are interventions that are needed. Babies are born preterm, babies and moms need to be separated, things like that. And all of those things can lead to difficulty with nursing. We do know that if breastfeeding is initiated within the first 1 to 2 hours after birth, that there is a better success rate or a higher chance of your baby doing well. Does that mean that if you are separated in that first 1 to 2 hours, you cannot breastfeed? Absolutely not. But that is why you'll see so many lactation professionals and doctors, pediatricians, really pushing for that golden hour or that immediate skin to skin time. You may have seen our skin to skin graphic that went on social media a few days ago. It talks more about this, but why that skin to skin time is so important is to kick off breastfeeding, not only for your baby, but also for your body. When your body gets that skin to skin time and that initial latch for the first time, that's what tells your body to start kicking into that milk making. So aside from birth interventions or difficulties, there can also sometimes be restrictions like tongue ties or lip ties or other oral anatomy that's just not quite right. And that can make it harder for baby to open wide or to wrap their tongue around the breast and be able to breastfeed well. The great thing about all of these problems that we're talking about is that they almost always have a solution. And a lactation professional, your pediatrician, your other support people can help you work through these difficulties. And we can almost always figure out what's going wrong and fix it and get you to the breastfeeding goals that you have for yourself. So that is why we encourage here at Kiinde. You'll hear Dominique and I talk a lot about taking a breastfeeding class before you have your baby. And that's because it gives you some expectations, not only on what's normal, but what problems you could encounter and what you could do. So it helps you to kind of make a plan. So of course, we always hope for the best. But if something does come up, then you have this lactation professional who's taught your class to reach back out to, and you have some sort of expectation of what to do if things don't go the way that you're planning. This question says, can breast milk mix with formula to get baby to sleep longer at night? So we actually just talked about this in our post yesterday. Our trivia question last week was, will feeding my baby additional solids or formula help them sleep longer at night? And the answer is usually no. Sleep is highly developmental. Actually, babies' brains and bodies are wired to wake frequently throughout the night as a natural sleep protection, or excuse me, SIDS protection. They are still developing all of their systems. And so those frequent wake ups help them to make sure that their heart rate and their breathing and their temperatures and all those things are regulated. It's also important to remember that babies have really tiny tummies that digest breast milk quickly. That also is a normal biological process, and those frequent feeds, especially under 6 months, are really important for your baby's development and also for your breast milk supply. So while some parents may have anecdotal experience of offering formula to get their baby to sleep longer at night, or adding solids in early, additional formula. The evidence-based research tells us that sleep is developmental and that all babies hit that developmental milestone at a different time. So that may be why your friend or your sister's baby sleeps longer periods before your baby does. But what we shared this week, and I encourage you to go look at the post. I'll have Emma put the link in the comments for me if she can. Is that developing a sleep routine can really help to return some of the normalcy for you, and also help your baby to learn really healthy sleep habits. So picking a bedtime, and then, dimming the lights, giving a bath, doing an infant massage with some lotion, singing a special song, reading a book, doing that, bedtime feeding while you snuggle your baby. You may want to incorporate skin to skin. There are so many different things that you can do that will give you a routine, which will help your baby to learn this is bedtime, and at bedtime we go to sleep. And then if your baby does wake through the night, you can replicate some of those things, the snuggles, the feeding, to help their brains to start to remember this is what we do at sleeping time. And that will help give you some of your normalcy too. Of course, we know that babies sometimes are just not going to do what we want to do for the day, and they may need a little extra love or attention, or they're cluster feeding. So it's not a perfect science, but having that routine really can help. I know as a mom myself, it just kind of kept me going throughout the day to know that these were our little routines, not necessarily a specific time, but when it came time for bedtime or feeding time or playtime, we had our little routine. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with the sleep situation, try incorporating a routine and see if that helps. If you really feel like your baby is waking super frequently, like every 30 minutes for months at a time or something like that, talk to your pediatrician, talk to your lactation professional, send us an email at lc@kiinde.com if you don't have somebody to talk to. And these professionals can help you to kind of make a plan, and maybe get to the root cause of what is going on. But generally, introducing additional formula or solids is not likely to make your baby sleep any longer. This question's from Amanda. Says, is there any way to teach a newborn to open wide enough for a deep latch? She opens her mouth, but not as wide as when she yawns, and her latches are often shallow. There definitely are some techniques that you can do. When you bring your baby to the breast, make sure your tummies are facing each other. So oftentimes when we hold our baby, we put them, in a cradle hold like this, which you can still do at the breast, but their belly is up. Just making that simple turn of the arm to put you belly to belly is already going to line them up in a way that it'll be easier for them to open wide, like when they're yawning or rooting, things like that. Also lining their nose up, so baby's nose up with your nipple, which may feel like you're holding them a little bit lower, but it requires them to get that nice asymmetric latch on the breast. So even to get the breast into their mouth, they're going to have to open nice and wide. They're going to have a lot of mouth down here underneath the nipple, and they're going to have that nice asymmetrical latch, and you'll start to see that rocking motion when they suck. There are some other techniques you can try, like the flipple technique, where you kind of support your breast up, allow them to latch, and then kind of flip the nipple into their mouth. That also can help to achieve that deeper latch. If you feel like you're trying all these things and it's overwhelming or it's just not working, then definitely visit with a lactation professional, and they could do a feeding assessment for you and make sure that there isn't a tightness or a restriction or something like that that's preventing the deep latch. But often just a positioning change is all that you need to get that little bit deeper latch. This question from Amber says, what can cause a random drop in supply? I just narrowly escaped mastitis, and I feel like that boob is underproducing. So if you had a clogged duct on that side that almost got mastitis, that can sometimes cause a temporary dip in supply. So once you've relieved the clog, it may take a little bit of time for that side to catch back up. Feeding more frequently on that side, or starting feeds on that side more frequently, doing extra pumping sessions, hand expression, all those kinds of things. Even just letting your baby do the work for you can help to get that back up. It would also be important to think about or consider what caused the clogged duct in the first place. Is your baby starting to sleep longer at night? Are they starting to go longer between feedings? Did you miss a feeding? Did you miss a pump session? All those things can also cause a dip in supply. Is your cycle starting to return? Some women experience with their cycle, they'll experience a temporary dip. Think about any medications or supplements you may have started. And if you kind of go through that whole checklist and you can't think of any one thing, then again, I would suggest meeting with a lactation professional or send Dominique an email, again, to elsie@kiinde.com, and we can get more information for you from you, because it may be something particular with your situation. But generally, if it feels random, it's usually temporary, and we can get it back up with a little bit of work. This question from Kim is about pumping, collecting milk before your baby is born. Is it safe? How do I do it? Should I bring the colostrum I collect to the hospital? So that is a really great question, Kim, and I'm sure many other mothers or parents that are watching tonight have had that same thought. So doing any kind of stimulation at the breast or the nipple when you're pregnant can cause uterine contractions. Now, if you were already breastfeeding when you got pregnant, it may be safe for you to continue breastfeeding throughout your pregnancy. We're not talking about that kind of situation. But if you're a first-time mom, or you weaned before you got pregnant and you haven't been stimulating throughout your pregnancy, any kind of stimulation can cause uterine contractions and potentially preterm labor. So generally we say, do not express, do not pump, do not hand express regularly when you're pregnant, unless you're full term and your doctor is supervising that expression. After your full term, some doctors may encourage that to actually, encourage labor or to encourage contractions. But if you're not in that situation, your doctor hasn't encouraged you to and isn't supervising that, the general best practice is to not express while pregnant. If you are leaking colostrum, which many of us do, you can use something like a milk savers, or if you're even just sitting there, a bottle, whatever you want to use to catch the colostrum that's leaking. That is perfectly safe. You can save that if you want to have it in the freezer for after your baby is born. You don't necessarily need to bring the colostrum to the hospital. Of course, the plan is that you would just breastfeed your baby at the breast. If you wanted to bring it in case of supplement, you could. You would definitely need to discuss with your hospital what their procedures and policies are around that, because all hospitals are different. And I would hate for anybody to bring that liquid gold and not be able to use it. So they may encourage you to leave it at home. And especially there's COVID restrictions right now that may also play into that. So if you're planning on bringing your colostrum with you to the hospital, which you could if you wanted, I would just find out what the hospital's guidelines are first. You don't have to collect your colostrum. You don't have to bring it with you. That is totally a personal choice. And also it is totally normal to not be leaking any colostrum as well. So I hope that answers your question, Kim. I know that was kind of a lot of information in one answer. If you still have questions or anything was unclear, just reply in the comments or send us an email, and I would be happy to clarify anything for you. This question from Emily says, for my little one, I'm having to pump and feed with a bottle due to not latching. And we know that many breastfeeding moms exclusively pump, and that is hard work. So bravo to you, Emily. I was wanting to know if I should wake him up at night every 3 hours to pump or let him sleep, and how long do I need to pump every 3 hours? So this is going to be heavily dependent on the age of your baby. If your baby is brand new born, you are going to want to continue waking them every 2 to 3 hours until they are to birth weight and gaining. So once baby is to their birth weight and is gaining well, you can let them sleep. I still wouldn't let your baby go more than 4 hours while they're still little. If your baby is like 6 months or older and is starting to sleep longer stretches, it's probably okay to let him sleep. As far as you waking up to pump, if he sleeps a longer stretch, that's up to you. If you want to get some sleep in and your body allows you to do that, like you're not waking up with uncomfortable or waking up with clogs, things like that, you can go that longer stretch. You want to pump as frequently as your baby is eating, or as close to that as you can. So if your baby's eating every 3 hours, you want to continue pumping every 3 hours. I would not go any longer than every 3 to 4 hours, really, ever. And really, most breastfed babies kind of stay within that guideline. So I know that was a really general answer. It's hard sometimes on these lives, we're talking to everybody, to give more than that. If you would like more advice on your specific situation, your specific schedule, send us again an email to elsie@con.com with a little bit more details, and Dominique can help with that. But generally, you're going to want to pump every 3 hours as long as your baby is eating every 3 hours. And you can let them sleep once they are growing well. This question from Amanda says, what do you do if your letdown is so intense that your baby seems to choke because she can't handle the amount of milk all at once? So we'll talk about that first, Amanda, and then we will go into the second half of your question. So overactive letdown is something that many breastfeeding parents have experienced. Myself personally, I have an overactive letdown. So I know just how you're feeling when it feels like your milk just pours out and your poor baby is just gulping like crazy to try to keep up with it. There are a few things that you can do. One of the easiest things to do is just take your nursing position into a laid back position. So you can lean back on a recliner, on your couch, on your bed, whatever feels comfortable to you, and just lean back. That will put gravity on your side. So gravity is helping a little bit to keep that letdown from really kind of pouring or dumping out. Some other things that I have done personally and have also heard of other breastfeeding mothers doing is to hand express down. So before you latch your baby, hand express into a container, let that let down happen, and then latch your baby. There's still going to be plenty of milk there for them, but your baby will have to work a little bit to get it out. And with that, they are able to control the flow a little bit better. Some will put the baby on, let them nurse. If they get overwhelmed, then break that latch and then catch it with a towel or a bottle, whatever you want to do. Generally, of course, every baby is different, but as they grow, as your baby grows, they're able to keep up with the flow a little bit better, and they're not gulping and coughing and things like that so much. So I hope those tips help. The second part of Amanda's question says, curious about getting a deeper latch with larger nipples. So a lot of those techniques that I shared previously, getting your baby belly to belly, nose to nipple, are going to be the same. The flipple technique that I was talking about, which is where you kind of lift your nipple up and then flip it into the baby's mouth, can be really helpful when you have those, if you feel like your nipples are larger, your baby's having a hard time getting a good gape around it. You can kind of think about it like when you eat a big hamburger, you kind of smash it down gently before you take a big bite. That's kind of what the flipple does. You would use really gentle pressure so you're not causing any kind of clogging or tension onto the breast, but it just kind of helps baby to get their mouth up over the hamburger, so to speak. You guys have some really awesome questions tonight. You always do, but these are great. This question from Angelica says, I'm having a hard time latching him on the opposite boob. I tried every position and he just doesn't like it. He has a favorite already. Any suggestions? So I would venture to say that most of us have experienced our baby having a side preference. There can be many reasons for this. It may be that side flows a little faster or a little slower, or the letdown happens a little faster, or baby just likes to lay in a specific position. So some of it may be dependent on what you think is the reason. If you feel like it's a flow issue, if it is that one side lets down more quickly than the other, then doing some compressions on the opposite side to kind of mimic that quick letdown can be helpful. If you feel like it's the opposite and that baby is overwhelmed by the letdown on the side that they are not wanting to use, then doing that laid back feeding or latching after the letdown has kind of already happened can be really helpful, again, to mimic the flow. If you feel like it's a positioning issue, like your baby is not comfortable in a different position, it may be worth talking to their pediatrician about, is there some muscle tightness or something like that that may be preventing them from being comfortable in a specific position. Um, and ultimately, we've shared this before, that there are some babies who do prefer one breast, and they may do the majority of their nursing on the one breast, and mom will choose to pump the other breast, or just depending on the age of the baby, they may just feed off of the one. So if you go through all the motions and it's still not working, you can't find a difference in latch or positioning or flow, I would encourage you to visit a lactation consultant, just as a double check that there's not something underlying, and to make a plan for what it's going to look like with the baby preferring the one breast. This question from Nancy says, my baby is almost 16 months old and I'm looking to start weaning soon. What's the best way to go about that? So we actually do have a post on our blog, and I will make sure that the link gets into the comments, about gentle weaning or toddler weaning. My suggestion is always to take it slow. That's going to help you and your baby emotionally adjust, as well as your body to adjust. So at 16 months, you can pick whatever feeding you want to start with. Usually I suggest picking the feeding that's the least important, or the one that maybe your baby kind of is indifferent about, or however you want to say it, and replace that feeding with something different. If it's a meal time, then you can replace it with solids and a glass of milk, or whatever you choose for your baby. If it's a sleep time or a comfort time, you can pick a stuffed animal or a blanket. Some parents will choose a special song that they sing while they're nursing, so then they can continue to use that song with snuggles or skin to skin. There's all sorts of different ways to help your baby adjust to not nursing anymore. And then as far for your body, just seeing how your body responds to that less stimulation, you may find that you need to do some hand expression, or even a little bit of pumping as you start cutting out those feeds, to kind of cut it down slowly. Like maybe you cut the feeding in half, or you use hand expression or pumping just for discomfort so you don't get engorged. But check that post out. Like I said, I'll make sure that it gets in the comments, and just kind of do what feels right, and in the time period that feels right for you and your baby. This question from Alexius says, how do I increase breast milk supply? So just taking it back to basics, breast milk is heavily supply and demand. So the more that you demand, then your supply will naturally grow. So if your baby is nursing, offering the breast more frequently, pumping, obviously you could pump more frequently, you could pump in between feedings if you needed to. And of course, I know that just saying supply and demand, it sounds really easy, and we know that it's not always that easy. If you feel like you're doing the general supply and demand thing, you're not stretching feedings, or you haven't cut feedings out recently, things like that, and you're still seeing a decrease, or you're not seeing a movement, then definitely visit with a lactation professional to see if there's some kind of underlying issue with why your breast milk supply would not be adequate for your baby's needs. The second thing I'd like to talk about regarding that would be making sure that your expectations of what your breast milk supply should look like are appropriate. So sometimes we read stuff on the internet, or we compare with our friends, or our mom or mother-in-law or neighbor or sister, and we all have different breast milk supplies because we all have different babies who have different needs. And so generally your baby, if you are like pumping and leaving milk for your baby, needs 1 to 1.5 ounces per hour of breast milk. So throughout a day, they need, about 25 to 30 ounces of breast milk. So you don't necessarily, if you're looking at it like, oh, I need, days and days worth of milk for this baby, or I need, more ounces than are appropriate, it may feel really overwhelming, and you're really making the perfect amount for your baby. If baby's nursing at the breast, of course, we watch for diapers and weight gain and signs of satisfaction from our baby to know that they are getting the milk that they need. And again, if you feel like behaviors at the breast are indicating that your baby is not getting enough, then visit with a lactation professional. They can do an assessment, a weighted feeding, lots of different assessment tools that they'll use to make sure that your baby is getting everything that they need. So we're going to do one more question tonight, and then we will draw our winner for our gift set. So this will be our last question. Again, I just want to emphasize, if you have more questions, please put them into the comments. We will answer them. We will make sure that you get the support that you need. And this question says, I've heard conflicting information. Sterilize pump parts after every use, or sterilize before first use and then subsequent uses pop in the dishwasher. Thoughts? So the current CDC recommendations for breast pump parts are to sterilize before first use, and then to wash with soap and water after every single use and sterilize as needed. So you definitely don't have to sterilize them every single time, just as you feel needed. You could talk to your pump manufacturer to see if they have a recommendation on how frequently you sterilize, how sterilization, like what types of sterilization may affect the materials that are used in the pump. But generally, the current CDC recommendations for storing breast milk would be that first time you clean them really good, sterilize them, and then you use soap and water to wash after every pump session. So that's going to be the recommendation there. So yeah, if you have any more questions, please send us an email, pop it in the comments. We're here for you. Just want to put a plug in for our awesome community. We have a Facebook group that is called Kiinde Community. Lauren, who is one of our lactation professionals, as well as Dominique, do a really fantastic job of moderating that group. It is a lactation consultant-led peer support group. The families that we have in that group are really incredible. The support that I see happening in that group is just really, really cool. So much love in there. We don't have really any trouble. So if you have not yet joined that Facebook group, then just find us on Facebook at Kiinde Community. We also have a support group for your support people. If your spouse or your mom or your sister or whoever is not a breastfeeding parent and would like to join a support group, we have Kiinde Companions, which is a similar support group led by the same people for your support people. So look both of those up for us. Look both of those up on Facebook, and we are there to help in those groups. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for helping us celebrate World Breastfeeding Week this week. We're going to choose our winner for our gift set. And our winner is Kyla Mackey. I hope I'm saying your name right, Kyla. Kyla Mackey. So send us an email to support@kiinde.com, Kyla, and we will make sure that you get your gift set. And thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I have loved chatting with you as always, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.